The rain hammered against the windows of my hardware store as I counted the day's receipts. It was nearly closing time in our small Montana town of Willowbrook when the bell above the door chimed.
I looked up to see Wilhelmina, Willa Thornhill.
Standing in the doorway, soaked to the bone, her dark hair plastered to her face. I'd known Willa since we were children. She'd been the banker's daughter, always proper, always perfect. Now, at 28, she stood before me with desperation in her green eyes. "Emmett," she said, her voice trembling. "I need your help." I set down my pencil. "Come in, Willa. You're dripping all over the floor?" She stepped inside but didn't move further. "I need a husband by tomorrow." I blinked. Of all the things I'd expected her to say, that wasn't one of them. "I'm sorry, what?" "My father's will," she began, wringing her hands. I only just learned the full terms. To inherit the house and my mother's trust fund, I must be married by my 29th birthday. That's tomorrow, Emmett. If I'm not married, by midnight tomorrow, everything goes to my cousin Harold, and he'll turn my mother's house into one of his gambling halls. I'd heard about Harold Thornhill. Real piece of work, that one. "Why come to me?" I asked, though my heart had already started beating faster. "Because you're the only man in this town I trust," she said simply. "I know it's insane. I know. I have no right to ask. But I'm desperate, and you've always been kind to me, even when we were children, and I was too proud to be kind back." I studied her face, seeing the fear and determination there. Willa Thornhill was asking me to marry her, the girl I'd been half in love with since I was 14 years old. "If we do this," I said slowly, "you'll have to come and live at my place. People will talk otherwise, and the will could be contested." She nodded. "I understand it. To think about it. Come to the store tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, I'll have my answer." After she left, I sat in the silence of my store, listening to the rain, and thought about what it meant to marry someone who didn't love you. Willa arrived at exactly 9 o'clock the next morning. I'd barely slept, spending the night thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. But I'd also thought about the alternative, Willa losing everything, being forced from her home, possibly leaving Willowbrook entirely. I couldn't let that happen. "I'll do it," I said before she could even speak. "But we need ground rules." Relief washed over her face. "Of course. Anything." We sat in my small office at the back of the store. I poured us both coffee from the pot I kept on the wood stove. "We'll be a marriage in name only," I began. "You'll have your own bedroom in my house. The guest room upstairs is plenty comfortable. You're free to come and go as you please. When you're ready, if you're ready, we can quietly divorce." She nodded. Her hands wrapped around the coffee cup. "That's more than fair. I won't ask anything from you that you're not willing to give," I continued. "But in public, we'll need to appear as a normal married couple, for the sake of the will and to prevent gossip that could undermine everything." "I can do that," she said softly, and Willa. I waited until she met my eyes. "I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you probably hope to marry for love someday. I'm sorry it's come to this." Something flickered across her face, an emotion I couldn't quite read. "You're saving my life, Emmett. I'm the one who should be apologizing for dragging you into this mess." We were married that afternoon by Judge Parker in a quiet ceremony, with only my younger sister, Dorothy, and the judge's wife as witnesses. Willa wore a simple blue dress. I wore my Sunday suit. When the judge pronounced us man and wife, I kissed her cheek chastely, and she gave me a small, grateful smile. That evening, I carried her single traveling trunk up to the guest room of my house, a modest 2-story home on the edge of town that I'd built with my own hands 5 years ago. "Make yourself at home," I told her. "What's mine is yours now." She stood in the center of the guest room, looking small and lost. "Emmett, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," I said. "Just ... try to be happy here, that's all I ask." After I left her to settle in, I went downstairs and wondered what I'd just done. I'd married Willa Thornhill, the girl who used to walk past my father's farm without a second glance. The woman who'd never given me reason to believe she saw me as anything more than a childhood acquaintance, and now she was my wife. The first week was awkward in ways I hadn't anticipated. Willa tried to stay out of my way, tiptoeing around the house like a ghost. She'd wake before dawn to make breakfast, then disappear to her room or to town. We'd have dinner together in near silence, exchanging pleasantries about the weather. In the store, on the 8th day, I came home to find her struggling with the wood stove. Smoke billowed into the kitchen, and she was coughing, her eyes watering. "Here," I said, moving quickly to adjust the damper. "You have to open this first, or the smoke has nowhere to go." "I'm sorry," she said, stepping back. "I wanted to make something nice for dinner, to thank you. But I'm hopeless at this." I looked at her, looked at her and saw not the perfect banker's daughter, but a woman who'd probably never had to cook a day in her life before moving into my house. "Didn't you have a cook at your father's house?" I asked gently. She nodded, looking embarrassed, and a housekeeper. "I know that makes me sound spoiled and useless." "It makes you sound like a woman who's doing her best in a new situation," I corrected. "How about this? I'll teach you to use the stove, and you can teach me something you know how to do." A small smile tugged at her lips. "I can read Latin and play piano," I laughed. "Well, the piano might come in handy. I've got my mother's old one in the parlor. No one's played it in years." That night, after dinner, Willa sat at the piano and played. The music filled the house, beautiful and melancholy. I sat in my armchair, pretending to read the newspaper, but really just listening to her play. When she finished, she turned to me. "Your mother must have loved music." "She did," I said. "She tried to teach me, but I was all thumbs. Drove her crazy." "Would you like me to teach you?" Willa asked. "A fair trade for the cooking lessons?" "I think you're getting the raw end of that deal," I said, "but yes, I'd like that." Something shifted between us that night. Not love, not yet. But maybe the beginning of friendship. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a rhythm, like Willa would. Work in the garden during the mornings, something she said her mother had loved to do. I'd come home from the store to find her hands dirty and her cheeks flushed with fresh air, looking more alive than I'd ever seen her. In the evenings, we'd cook together. She was a terrible cook at first, burning everything she touched, but she was determined to learn. I found myself laughing more than I had in years as she cursed at stubborn pie crusts and oversalted soup. "How did you live alone all this time without starving?" she asked one night after I'd rescued yet another dish from disaster. "I'm a simple man," I said. "Beans, bread, and bacon will sustain a bachelor just fine." "Well, you're not a bachelor anymore," she said, then paused, as if remembering the circumstances of our marriage. "I mean, technically you are, but I know what you meant," I said softly. One Saturday afternoon, Dorothy came to visit. She and Willa sat in the parlor, drinking tea, while I pretended to work on account books in my study. But I could hear their conversation. "He's a good man, your brother," Willa said. "Better than I deserve." "Don't sell yourself short," Dorothy replied. "Emmett's been happier these past weeks than I've seen him in ages. Whatever arrangement you two have, it's good for him." "It's not fair to him," Willa said quietly. "Trapping him in a marriage of convenience." "Did you trap him?" Dorothy asked. "Or did he choose to help you?" There was a long pause. "He chose," Willa admitted. "And trust that he knew what he was doing," Dorothy said. "My brother doesn't do anything halfway. If he married you, even for practical reasons, he meant those vows." That night, Willa was quieter than usual. After dinner, she sat at the piano and played a song I'd never heard before, something soft and sweet that made my chest ache. "That was beautiful," I said when she finished. "What was it?" "Something my mother used to play," she said. "She called it her love song. She'd play it every evening before bed." "Did she love your father?" I asked, then immediately regretted it. "I'm sorry, that's too personal." "No, it's all right," Willa said. "I think she did, in her way. Their marriage was also arranged, you know. Her family needed my father's money. His family needed her social standing. But they made it work. They found happiness together." She turned on the piano bench, too. "Look at me. Emmett, I want you to know, I'm grateful for what you've done, but I also don't want you to feel trapped. You ever meet someone you truly want to marry, Willa?" I interrupted gently. "I'm not looking for anyone else." The words hung between us, heavy with meaning. I wasn't ready to explain. She studied my face, and I wondered what she saw there. "All right," she finally said, "but the offer stands. I won't hold you to this forever." The thing was, I was beginning to hope she would. Spring turned to summer, and our comfortable routine continued. Willa had transformed the garden into something spectacular, and she'd started selling her vegetables and flowers at the town market. On Saturdays, I'd watch her from the store window, animated and smiling as she talked with customers, and feel a fierce pride that she was my wife, even if it was only on paper. Then Harold Thornhill came to town. He showed up at my store on a Tuesday afternoon, all slicked back hair and expensive suit. I disliked him immediately. "So you're the fortune hunter who married my cousin?" he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I'm the man who married Willa." "Yes," I replied evenly. "Was there something you needed? Or are you just here to insult me?" "I'm here to warn you," he said, leaning on my counter. "I've got lawyers looking into that marriage. A wedding performed in haste just before the deadline. It reeks of fraud. When they prove it, I'll have that house and the money, and you'll both be exposed." "The marriage is legal and legitimate," I said, keeping my voice calm even as anger simmered in my gut. "Now get out of my store," he smirked. "We'll see about that. Oh, and tell Willa I'll be stopping by the house tomorrow. We have family matters to discuss." After he left, I closed the store early and went home. Willa was in the garden, humming to herself as she cut flowers. She looked so peaceful that I almost didn't want to tell her, but I had to. Her face went pale as I explained Harold's visit. "He's going to try to prove the marriage is fake," she said, sitting down heavily on the garden bench. "Emmett, what if people start asking questions? What if someone realizes we're not, that we don't?" She couldn't finish the sentence, but I understood. We lived as roommates, not spouses. We were friends, perhaps, but not lovers. "Anyone paying close attention might notice. Then we'll deal with it," I said, sitting beside her. Together. "This is my fault," she said, her voice breaking. "I should never have asked you to do this. I've ruined your life. Willa, look at me." I waited until her green eyes met mine. "You haven't ruined anything these past months. Having you here, it's been good, really good." "I'm not going to let Harold take that away. But what if no what ifs?" I said firmly. "We're legally married. We live together. We care about each other. That's more than a lot of married couples can say." She looked at me for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She reached out and took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." I squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine, and realized that somewhere along the way, this arrangement had stopped being just a favor. I'd fallen in love with my wife. Harold's visit the next day was exactly as unpleasant as I'd anticipated. Willa and I sat together on the sofa in our parlor while he prowled around, examining everything with calculating eyes. "Cozy," he said with a sneer, though I noticed the piano and that chair are positioned rather far from each other. "Not exactly the setup of newlyweds, is it?" "We enjoy our own activities in the evening," Willa said, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. I covered her hand with mine, a gesture that felt natural now. "And separate bedrooms," Harold pressed. "The whole town knows you sleep upstairs while he's down here." My jaw tightened. He'd been asking around. "My wife had the master bedroom. Redecorated," I said smoothly. "I've been using the downstairs room while the work is being done. Not that our sleeping arrangements are any of your business." It was a lie. But it rolled off my tongue easily when I saw the flicker of uncertainty in Harold's eyes. After he left, Willa sagged against me. "He knows Emmett, or at least he suspects." "Then we'll have to be more convincing," I said. That night, we moved my things upstairs to the master bedroom. Willa helped me carry my clothes and books, her movements quick and efficient. "I can sleep on the floor," I offered as we stood in the bedroom doorway. "Or I can put up a screen to divide the room." "Don't be ridiculous," she said, though her cheeks were pink. We're both adults. The bed is large enough for 2 people to share without anything inappropriate, so we developed a new routine. Each night, we'd get ready for bed in shifts. She'd change in the bedroom while I washed up downstairs, then we'd switch. We'd lie in the darkness on opposite sides of the bed, careful not to touch. Making awkward small talk until one of us fell asleep, it was torture. Not because it was uncomfortable, but because it was too comfortable. I'd wake in the night to find her curled toward me, her hand resting near mine on the quilt. Or I'd catch the scent of her hair on the pillow and have to resist the urge to move closer. One night, about a week after we'd started sharing the room, I woke to the sound of crying. Willa was curled on her side, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs.
Willa,
I said softly, "What's wrong?" "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I didn't mean to wake you."
I
had a dream about my mother, and without thinking, I moved across the bed and pulled her into my arms. She stiffened for just a moment, then melted against me, crying into my chest. "It's all right," I murmured, stroking her hair. "I've got you. I miss her so much," she whispered. "And I feel so guilty. I inherited everything because of her trust fund. But she never got to enjoy any of it. She died when I was 16, and my father remarried within a year. His new wife spent money like water, and when he died, there was nothing left but debts. The house was only still ours because Mother had put it in trust for me. Your mother would be proud of you," I said. "You fought to keep her legacy alive, by tricking a kind man into a false marriage." She said bitterly, "Right, by being brave enough to ask for help," I corrected. "And for what it's worth, Willa, this hasn't felt false to me in a very long time." She pulled back just enough to look at my face and the moonlight streaming through the window. "What do you mean?" My heart pounded. This was at the moment I could tell her the truth or continue living the lie. "I mean," I said carefully, "that having you in my life, in my home, in my bed, Evan, like this, is the best thing that's ever happened to me." Her eyes widened, searching mine. "Emmett, ... You don't have to say anything," I said quickly. "I know this isn't what you signed up for. I just needed you to know that you're not alone in this. Whatever happens with Harold, whatever the future holds, I'm here. I'm your husband, Willa. Maybe we started out pretending, but I'm not pretending anymore." She was quiet for so long. Thought I'd made a terrible mistake. Then she reached up and touched my face, her fingers trembling against my cheek. "Neither am I," she whispered. After that night, something fundamental shifted between us. We still slept in the same bed, but now there were gentle touches her hand in mine as we walked to church on Sunday. My arm around her waist as we stood. In the garden, soft kisses goodnight that lingered a moment too long. We were learning each other. I discovered that Willa loved thunderstorms and would stand at the window watching the lightning. She learned that I could fix almost anything but was hopeless with cooking anything more complicated than eggs. She read to me in the evenings from her favorite books as I taught her how to fish in the creek behind our house. Dorothy noticed, of course. She cornered me at the store one afternoon with a knowing smile. "You're in love with her," she said. It wasn't a question. I didn't bother denying it. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows you," Dorothy said. "Does she know?" I told her, I admitted. Sort of, and I hope she might feel the same way. But it's complicated, Dorothy. This marriage started as a business arrangement. What if she still sees it that way? What if I'm reading too much into every smile and touch?" "Have you asked?" Dorothy said simply. I hadn't, of course. I was too afraid of the answer. That fear almost cost me everything. Harold made his move on. A Saturday in late July, he arrived at the house with a lawyer and demanded to see the marriage certificate and proof that our marriage was legitimate. "You have no right to demand anything," Willa said, standing tall in our parlor. "We were legally married. The will has been executed. You have no claim." "I have every right," Harold snarled, "when the marriage is a sham. You two barely know each other. You married in haste just to satisfy the will's requirements.
That's
fraud, cousin, and fraud invalidates the inheritance." "We're not committing fraud," I said, stepping beside Willa. "We're married. We live as husband and wife." The lawyer, a thin man with spectacles, looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Thornhill has gathered testimony from several townspeople suggesting that your marriage is ... unconventional, that you married for financial reasons rather than affection." "And what business is our affection to anyone?" Willa demanded. But I could hear the fear beneath her anger. If you could demonstrate the legitimacy of the marriage, the lawyer suggested delicately, perhaps through evidence of genuine matrimonial relations. Willa went pale. I felt rage building in my chest. You want proof? I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Proof that I love my wife? That she's the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing I see before I sleep? That I'd do anything to keep her safe and happy? Emmett, Willa whispered, touching my arm. I ignored her, stepping forward until I was nearly nose to nose with Harold. The only sham here is you, pretending to care about legitimacy when all you want is money. Willa is worth 100 of you. She's kind and brave and beautiful. And yes, I married her to help her. But I'd marry her again tomorrow for no reason. Other than that, I love her. So take your lawyer and your accusations and get out of my house. There was a long, tense silence. Then Harold laughed. Very touching, he said. But speeches don't prove anything. I'll see you in court. Left, I expected Willa to be angry or scared. Instead, she was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Did you mean that? She asked quietly. What you said about loving me? My anger drained away, replaced by nervous uncertainty. Every word, even the part about marrying me again, especially that part. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and kissed me. Not the gentle, tentative kisses we'd been sharing, but a real kiss, deep and passionate, and full of all the things we'd been too afraid to say. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, she pressed her forehead to mine. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have for months now. I was just too scared to admit it. Scared that you'd married me out of pity. Scared that I'd trapped you in something you didn't want. You didn't trap me, I said, framing her face with my hands. I walked into this with my eyes wide open because I'd been half in love with you since we were kids. These past months with you have been the happiest of my life. Even with Harold trying to destroy everything. Even with that, I assured her. Because at the end of every difficult day, I get to come home to you. She kissed me again, softer this time. Then we'll face him together. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. The court hearing was set for 2 weeks later. In that time, Willa and I didn't hide anymore. We walked through town hand in hand. We kissed on the front porch for all the neighbors to see. We were truly a husband and wife now, in every sense that mattered. When the day came, the courthouse was packed. Apparently, our story had captured the town's imagination, the wealthy banker's daughter and the humble hardware store owner who'd married under unusual circumstances. Harold's lawyer presented his case. The hasty marriage, the initial separate bedrooms, the suspicious timing. He called witnesses who testified that Willa and I seemed like polite strangers in those first weeks. Then it was our turn. Dorothy testified first, speaking about how she'd watched me fall in love with Willa over the months, how our home had become filled with laughter and music. Judge Parker himself spoke, saying that while the marriage had been quick, he'd seen genuine care between us, even in that brief ceremony. Finally, Willa and I took the stand together, an unusual request, but one the judge allowed. Tell me, the judge said, why should I believe this marriage is legitimate? I looked at Willa, and she nodded, squeezing my hand. Your Honor, I began, we didn't marry for love. That's true. Willa needed a husband to satisfy her father's will, and I agreed to help her. Somewhere between cooking disasters and piano. Lessons between sharing a home and sharing our lives. We fell in love. Not because we had to, but because we chose to. And you, Mrs. Walker? The judge asked Willa. Do you concur? I do, Willa said, her voice strong and clear. When I asked Emmett to marry me, I expected a business arrangement. A partner, a friend, and eventually, the love of my life. Yes, the timing was convenient. Yes, we married quickly. But every day since we've chosen each other, we've built a real marriage, a real life together. That's not fraud, Your Honor. That's just love happening in an unconventional way. The judge was quiet for a long moment, studying us. Then he smiled. I've seen a lot of marriages in my years on this bench, he said. Some start with love and end in hatred. Others start with practicality and grow into something beautiful.
What?
Matters isn't how a marriage begins, but how the people in it treat each other every day after. He turned to Harold. Mr. Thornhill, your claim of fraud is denied. This marriage is legitimate, and the will stands as executed. Harold's face went red with rage, but there was nothing he could do. As he stormed out of the courtroom, the spectators erupted in applause. Willa turned to me, tears streaming down her face, and laughed. We won. We did, I said, pulling her close. We really did. That night, we celebrated with a small dinner at our house. Dorothy, Judge Parker and his wife, and a few close friends. As I watched Willa laugh and talk, completely at home in our house, in our life, I marveled at how far we'd come. Later, after everyone had gone and we were alone in our bedroom, Willa sat at her vanity brushing her hair. Emmett, she said softly, yes. Do you ever regret it, agreeing to marry me that day? I came up behind her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Not for a single second. Not even when Harold was making our lives difficult. Especially not then, I said, because that's when I realized that I'd fight for you, for us, no matter what. You're not just my wife on paper anymore, Willa. You're my wife in my heart. She set down the brush and turned to face me. I was so afraid that day I asked you. Afraid you'd say no. Afraid I was ruining your life. But you saved mine, Emmett, not just from losing the house. You saved me from a life without love. Saved me too, I said, kneeling beside her chair. From a life alone, from never knowing what it felt like to have someone choose me every single day. She cupped my face in her hands. I choose you. Today, tomorrow, always. And I choose you, I said. I'll always choose you. We kissed then, and it felt like a promise. Like a new beginning. The next morning, I woke to find Willa already up, standing at the window in her nightgown, watching the sunrise paint the sky, in shades of pink and gold. Beautiful morning, I said, coming to stand behind her. It is, she agreed, leaning back against me. I was just thinking in a few months, it'll be a year since I showed up at your store, desperate and soaked from the rain. Best rainy day of my life, I said, wrapping my arms around her. Mine too. She turned in my arms, smiling up at me. I came to you looking for a husband. I found so much more. What did you find? A home, she said simply. A partner. A love story. A slow one, I added, kissing her forehead. The best kind, she agreed. And she was right. Our love hadn't been instant or easy. It had grown slowly, carefully, built on friendship and trust and choosing each other every day. It was a love born from pretending until it became real, from learning that sometimes the best marriages are the ones that start with an impossible request and a simple answer. Then you'll have to come and live at my place. As we stood there in the early morning light, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together, because we weren't just playing at being married anymore. We were the real thing.